Chapter 17 of the Defiant Agents. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by R.J. Davis. The Defiant Agents by Andre Norton. Chapter 17.
There were 10 of them riding on small, wiry, steep ponies, men and women both, and well armed. Travis recalled it was a custom of the horde that the women fought as warriors when necessary. Menlik, there was no mistaking the flapping robe of their leader. And they were singing. The rider behind the shaman thumped with violent energy a drum fastened beside his saddle horn. Its heavy boom, boom, the same call the Apache had heard before. The Mongols were working themselves into the mood for some desperate effort, Travis deduced. And if they were too deeply under the red spell, there would be no arguing with them. He could wait no longer. The Apache swung down from a ledge near the valley gate, moved into the open, and stood waiting, the alien weapon resting across his forearm. If necessary, he intended to give a demonstration with it for an object lesson. "Dar you gar!" The war cry which had once awakened fear across a quarter of Terra. Thin here, and from only a few throats, but just as menacing. Two of the horsemen aimed lances, preparing to ride him down. Travis sighted a tree midway between them and pressed the firing button. This time there was a flash, a flicker of light, to mark the disappearance of a living thing. One of the lancer's ponies reared, squealed in fear. The other kept on his course. "Menlik," Travis shouted, "hold up your men. I do not want to kill." The shaman called out, but the lancer was already level with the vanished tree, his head half turned on his shoulder to witness the blackened earth where it had stood. Then he dropped his lance, sawed on the range. A rifle bullet might not have halted his charge, unless it killed or wounded, but what he had just seen was a thing beyond his understanding. The tribesmen set their horses facing Travis, watching him with the feral eyes of the wolves they claimed as forefathers, wolves that possessed the cunning of the wild, cunning enough not to rush breakneck into unknown danger. Travis walked forward. "Menlik, I would talk." There was an outburst from the horsemen, protest from Hulagur and one or two of the others. But the shaman urged his mount into a walking pace toward the Apache until they stood only a few feet from each other, the warrior of the steppes and the horde facing the warrior of the desert and the people. "You have taken a woman from our yurts," Menlik said, but his eyes were more on the alien gun than on the man who held it. "Brave are you to come again into our land. He who steps foot in the stirrup must mount into the saddle. He who draws blade free of the scabbard must be prepared to use it." "The horde is not here. I see only a handful of people," Travis replied. "Does Menlik propose to go up against the Apache so? Yet there are those who are his greater enemies. A stealer of women is not such a one as needs a regiment under a general to face him." Suddenly Travis was impatient of the ceremonious talking. There was so little time. "Listen, and listen well, shaman," he spoke curtly now. "I have not your woman. She is already crossing the mountains southward." He pointed with his chin, "leading the Reds into a trap." Would Menlik believe him? There was no need, Travis decided, to tell him now that Kaydessa's part in this affair was involuntary. "And you?" The shaman asked the question the Apache had hoped to hear. "We," Travis emphasized that, "march now against those hiding behind in their ship out there." He indicated the northern plains. Menlik raised his head, surveying the land about them with disbelieving, contemptuous appraisal. "You are chief then of an army equipped with magic to overcome machines?" "One needs no army when he carries this." For the second time Travis displayed the power of the weapon he carried, this time cutting into shifting rubble and outcrop of cliff wall. Menlik's expression did not change, though his eyes narrowed. The shaman signaled his small company and they dismounted. Travis was heartened by this sign that Menlik was willing to talk. The Apache made a similar gesture, and Jil-Lee and Buck, their own weapons well in sight, came out to back him. Travis knew that the Tatar had no way of knowing that the three were alone. He well might have believed an unseen troop of Apaches were nearby and so armed. "You would talk? Then talk," Menlik ordered. This time Travis outlined events with an absence of word embroidery. "Kaydessa leads the Reds into a trap we have set beyond the peaks. 4 of them ride with her. How many now remain in the ship near the settlement?" "There are at least 2 in the flyer, perhaps 8 more in the ship. But there is no getting at them in there." "No?" Travis laughed softly, shifting the weapon on his arm. "Do you not think that this will crack the shell of that nut so that we can get at the meat?" Menlik's eyes flickered to the left, to the tree which was no longer a tree but a thin deposit of ash on seared ground. "They can control us with the caller as they did before. If we go up against them, then we are once more gathered into their net before we reach their ship." "That is true for you of the Horde. It does not affect the people," Travis returned. "And suppose we burn out their machines. Then will you not be free?" "To burn up a tree, lightning from the skies can do that." "Can lightning," Buck asked softly, "also make rock as sand of the river?" Menlik's eyes turned to the second example of the alien weapon's power. "Give us proof that this will act against their machines." "What proof, shaman?" asked Jil-Lee. "Shall we burn down a mountain that you may believe? This is now a matter of time." Travis had a sudden inspiration. "You say that the chopper is out. Suppose we use that as a target." That can sweep the flyer from the sky?" Menlik's disbelief was open. Travis wondered if he had gone too far, but they needed to rid themselves of that spying flyer before they dared to move out into the plain. And to use the destruction of the helicopter as an example would be the best proof he could give to the invisibility of the new Apache arms. "Under the right conditions," he replied stoutly, "yes." "And those conditions?" Menlik demanded. "That it must be brought within range, say below the level of a neighboring peak where a man may lie in wait to fire." Silent Apaches faced silent Mongols, and Travis had a chance to taste what might be defeat. But the helicopter must be taken before they advanced toward the ship and the settlement. "And maker of traps, how do you intend to bait this one?" Menlik's question was an open challenge. "You know these Reds better than we," Travis counterattacked. "How would you bait it, son of the Blue Wolf?" "You say Kaydessa is leading the Reds south. We have but your word for that," Menlik replied. "Though how it would profit you to lie in such a matter." He shrugged. "If you do speak the truth, then the chopper will circle about the foothills where they entered." "And what would bring the pilot nosing further in?" the Apache asked. Menlik shrugged again. "Any manner of things. The Reds have never ventured too far south. They are suspicious of the heights, with good cause." His fingers near the hilt of his tulwar twitched. "Anything which might suggest that their party is in difficulty would bring them in for a closer look." "Say a fire, with much smoke?" Jil-Lee suggested. Menlik spoke over his shoulder to his own party. There was a babble of answer, 2 or 3 of the men raising their voice above those of their companions. "If set in the right direction, yes," the shaman conceded. "When do you plan to move, Apaches?" "At once." But they did not have wings, and the cross-country march they had to make was a rough journey on foot. Travis's at once stretched into night